We found that apartment online. It was a picturesque little place in the heart of a charming European city, perfect for our budget traveling plans. My girlfriend, Emma, and I had been looking for somewhere to stay that wouldn't break the bank, and this place seemed almost too good to be true. The pictures showed a cozy, well-decorated apartment with lots of character, and the price was suspiciously cheap. Still, we were excited about the opportunity. We figured we had lucked out. The landlord, a middle-aged man named Mr. Delacroix, met us at the front door with a friendly smile. He had an old-world charm about him, dressed in a tweed jacket with a slight French accent that added to the allure of the city. He handed us the keys and gave us a quick tour of the apartment. Everything seemed perfect. Quaint furnishings, vintage decor, and a stunning view of the city from the balcony. We settled in quickly. Emma was ecstatic about the central location. We could walk to all the main attractions, and there were cafes and shops just around the corner. For the first few days, it was a dream come true. We spent our time exploring the city, dining at local bistros, and enjoying the vibrant atmosphere, but then, little things started to happen. At first, it was so subtle that we brushed it off. A chair slightly out of place, a door we were sure we had closed left ajar. We laughed it off, blaming our forgetfulness and the novelty of living in a new place. It wasn't until the whispers started that we began to feel uneasy. It was late at night, and we were both in bed, half asleep. I heard a faint murmuring, like someone was talking in the next room. I assumed it was coming from the street below, but when I got up to check, the city was eerily silent. I dismissed it as my imagination and went back to bed. The next night, the whispers came again, clearer this time. Emma heard them too. We both sat up, listening intently. It sounded like a conversation, but the words were indistinct, almost like a foreign language. The voices seemed to drift through the walls, surrounding us. I got up and checked the apartment again, but there was no one there. The whispers stopped as soon as I left the bedroom. Emma was visibly shaken. "Jake, this is getting creepy," she said. "Maybe it's just an old building. Sound carries weirdly in places like this." "Yeah, maybe," I replied, though I wasn't convinced. There was something unsettling about those whispers, something that sent a chill down my spine. A few days later, things escalated. We came back from a day of sightseeing to find strange symbols drawn on the walls. They were faint, almost like they had been scratched into the plaster. Neither of us had seen them before, and we were certain they hadn't been there when we left. The symbols were unfamiliar, intricate designs that seemed almost otherworldly. We called Mr. Delacroix, hoping he could shed some light on what was happening. He arrived quickly, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. He inspected the symbols and shook his head. "I don't understand," he said. "These weren't here when I last checked the apartment. I'll have them removed immediately." He seemed genuinely perplexed, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker of something he was hiding. I couldn't put my finger on it, but it made me uneasy. The next few nights were a nightmare. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. Objects in the apartment started moving on their own. I would set something down, only to find it in a different place moments later. Emma and I were on edge, barely sleeping, our nerves frayed. One night, I woke up to find Emma standing by the window, staring out into the darkness. I called her name, but she didn't respond. When I got out of bed and touched her shoulder, she turned to me with a blank expression, her eyes glazed over. It was like she was in a trance. I shook her gently, and she snapped out of it, looking around in confusion. "Jake, what's happening to us?" She whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know," I admitted, holding her close. "But we're getting out of here. First thing in the morning, we're finding a new place to stay." But it wasn't that simple. The next morning, we packed our bags and tried to leave, but the front door wouldn't budge. It was like it was sealed shut. Panic set in as we tried everything, pushing, pulling, even breaking a window, but nothing worked. We were trapped. Desperation drove us to search the apartment for any clues. In a dusty corner of the attic, we found an old journal, hidden under a loose floorboard. It belonged to a previous tenant, a woman named Isabel. Her entries detailed similar experiences, whispers, moving objects, and the strange symbols. She wrote about the growing fear and her futile attempts to leave. The last entry was chilling. "The apartment is a gateway. It feeds on our fears. There is no escape." Emma and I looked at each other, terror in our eyes. We were caught in the same trap, victims of the apartment's sinister power. The whispers grew louder, filling the room with a cacophony of voices. We could feel the presence of something malevolent, something ancient and hungry. That night, as we huddled together in the living room, the symbols on the walls began to glow with an eerie light. The air grew cold, and a heavy sense of dread settled over us. We could hear footsteps echoing through the apartment, though we were the only ones there. Suddenly, the room was plunged into darkness. The whispers reached a fever pitch, and we could feel unseen hands reaching for us, pulling at our clothes, tugging at our hair. I grabbed Emma's hand, trying to keep her close, but it felt like we were being pulled apart. In the darkness, I heard Emma scream. I reached out, but my hand met only empty air. Panic surged through me as I called her name, my voice drowned out by the cacophony of whispers. I felt myself being dragged across the floor, unable to resist the unseen force. And then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The whispers faded, the room grew quiet, and the lights flickered back on. I was alone. Emma was gone. I searched the apartment frantically, calling her name, but there was no sign of her. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Despair washed over me as I realized the apartment had claimed her, just as it had claimed Isabel and who knows how many others before her. I sank to the floor, my mind reeling. How could this be happening? We had been so happy, so full of life, and now I was alone, trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Days turned into weeks, and I lost all sense of time. The whispers continued, taunting me, feeding on my fear and despair. I barely ate, barely slept, my mind consumed by the horror of it all. One day, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in the bathroom. I looked at my reflection, and for a moment, I didn't recognize the gaunt, hollow-eyed man staring back at me. I noticed something on the wall behind me, new symbols, glowing faintly. I turned to look, and there they were, more intricate and malevolent than ever. I knew then that I was next. The apartment was preparing to claim me, just as it had claimed Emma. But I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let it win. I went back to the attic and found Isabel's journal. There had to be something I missed, some clue, some way out. I read through the entries again, searching for anything that might help. And then, in the margins of one of the pages, I found a note, written in shaky handwriting. Face your fears. Confront the darkness. It was a long shot, but it was all I had. That night, as the whispers began to fill the room, I stood in the center of the living room and closed my eyes. I let the fear wash over me, let it consume me. The whispers grew louder, more frenzied, but I didn't move. I stood my ground, confronting the darkness within me. The air grew colder, and I could feel the presence of something ancient and malevolent, but I didn't back down. I faced it head-on, my mind filled with thoughts of Emma, of all the happy moments we had shared. The whispers reached a deafening crescendo, and then silence. The air grew warm again, and I opened my eyes. The symbols on the walls had faded, and the oppressive sense of dread had lifted. I could feel a change in the atmosphere, a sense of release. I walked to the front door and turned the handle. It opened easily, the sunlight streaming in from the hallway outside. I stepped out, feeling the weight of the apartment lift from my shoulders. I didn't look back as I walked away, leaving the apartment and its dark history behind. I knew I would never see Emma again, but I also knew I couldn't let the darkness consume me. I had to keep moving forward, to live for both of us. The memories of that apartment still haunt me, the whispers echoing in the back of my mind. But I survived. I faced my fears and confronted the darkness. And I will never forget the lessons I learned in that sinister place.